everybody! Excuse me. Welcome back, welcome back. Hi Fortune Cookie, hi Simon. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Baby Ghoul, welcome, welcome, welcome. I've never done something like this before, so I'm a little bit nervous. Let me just I made some notes, so let me just get those up. Hi Smoky Meadows, welcome, welcome, welcome. Just put them in the right place. So today, doing something I've never done before. And today I want to talk about, sort of put my thoughts, since we're at the end of Canto 6, which is sort of, we have 12 cantos, it's sort of for Inferno. Might be 13, I don't know what's happening with Dante. Feels at a sort of halfway point that feels like a good point to do some evaluation. And yeah, it just felt like a good point. So I want to talk about the characters, I want to talk about the cantos, and Intervallos, and then at the end, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about sort of what's coming up. What are my thoughts on Canto 7 now that I've caught up on the media and I've been doing some literature review and reading a bunch of papers to try and get myself prepared. I won't be able to, we'll talk about it when we get to there. But I'm also really interested in everybody else's thoughts. And the thing I also wanted to say is I'm using a tier list as a medium here, but I don't really want it to be thought of as a tier list exactly. I'm using it, yeah, as a way to be able to talk about the characters, but I'm not very good at picking favorites and things like writing. A tier list is sort of a very binary, things are better or weaker, and I don't feel comfortable like evaluating the characters in that fashion. And just I really don't want anybody to think that just because a character is lower I don't like them or I think they're badly written or anything. I think there's definitely, I think you'll see that the characters that tend to be lower are the ones that haven't really had a whole lot of time in the spotlight. There's definitely an effect, but just because somebody's in the lower tier, I love the entire cast. I love the entire cast, and I think they're all well written. Hi Blue Jay, hi Random Watcher, welcome, welcome. And first thing I want to do actually is I want to get rid of these, because nobody's there. And then let me actually, how do you do this? You can see I don't really do anything. Can be, yeah. Oh wait. That's not actually what I wanted. Hi Cool Side. Is this including Intervallos? Yes it will be. Hi the Big Glitch. I can say I don't use this website very much. No, I want this to be... No, I don't want new. Okay. No. This is for the highest honor a character can receive, and that is... Kim Kitsuragi tier. And then this is just... S. There we go, there we go. I think that's okay. Hi Fried Out, welcome, welcome, welcome. And yeah, as I said, I do have a favorite character, which I don't always do. It's one thing that's been an interesting experience is going through Lobotomy Corporation and Library of Ruina. I didn't have like the one. I was kind of sad I didn't have the one character. And we're not gonna do Virgilius, Karen, or Dante, but I'm also just gonna arrange them in order so I can scan them better. 3, 4, That's Dante 10, 11, and then we just swap you 2. Okay. So yeah, I did this. I've actually done tier lists a few times for myself, and I would kind of wish I had saved them. It would have been interesting, but I've always sort of been nervous about doing like a tier list because people can have like really strong opinions. That always made me a little bit nervous. But I wrote down what I wanted to do for this. I think after Murder on the Warp Express, I wrote down my notes for this one, and I thought, okay, I'm locked in. Ship it. This is what it is. This is what we are. And then I sat on it, and then I thought, maybe not. But I'm gonna stick with what I put then, but I think there's a sort of order, but in like B tier. In B tier, there's not really an order. The other tiers, maybe, but these are sort of characters that haven't had a lot of content, but again, I just want to use this as a way of being able to talk about them. I want to hear other people's opinions. I want to know who everybody else likes. That's a great thing. Everybody has their favorites, and everybody can sometimes appreciate or get different things out of different characters. Hi, I'm a very old man. Going to upload it to Twitter instantly, exactly. Hi, Top Notch. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You have a sip of tea. Before I do the very controversial first slot. Again, you can kind of put, don't take the order in B tier so super seriously, because I said they're all B. I love the whole cast and they all work together really well. But I'm gonna start with Ryoshu there. The main thing I want to say about Ryoshu is the gimmick of sort of ultra-violence is not really for me, but on the same hand, her other thing is art, and that's something that's really interesting to me. And so it's, for one reason, it's what makes me excited for a Canto, because I want to get into that philosophy, because we haven't really dug into why she appreciates like violence and death even the way she does. I assume in her Canto we're gonna get some more of that. I want to hear it. And I think if I understood it a little bit better, I'd appreciate it a bit more. Otherwise, like gore and violence is something kind of go like, ooh. But her, oh hi Sentimental, hi Sent, welcome, welcome. And hi Silver. They've gotten better at making her more funny in recent Cantos. Took a while to nail it down. They've done well. It's fun how they like establish maybe a gimmick for her. It's a sort of acronyms, and they still find ways to like play with it. I think it's Canto 4 where she says baffled. I think it's to Ishmael, and Ishmael's like, what does that mean? She's like, no, I'm just baffled. That's a really good line. She definitely has her really fun moments. The other thing is Canto 5, before when Big Brother's appearing, and she's just sort of just smiling about it as she takes her last cigarette. Just some really good moments, but again, and I've liked how they've chosen to develop her. She's one of the characters that sort of gets more, she doesn't open up too much within the main story, but we have had bits in her identity uptie stories about the whole theme of motherhood. A lot of that, I mean, she has had some parts I've even missed and people have to point them out later. But in part, yeah, particularly Nellie, the maid, or I guess butler, excuse me, the maid uptie story. And like then you get a little bit more from Heathcliff's, or Wuthering Heights, the wolf Heathcliff, that he acknowledges that she really cared for him. I love that idea. I love that uptie story. Thank you for the comment. She has that motherly imagery. Just did time killing time and Ryoshi was cool there. That was good moments. Ryoshi has much more tenderly motherly side she doesn't show off, and Nelly idea reveals a lot about. Exactly. That's what I like. It's a good way of like giving those hints, but we don't have to sort of force them into the main story, for instance. Hi King! You end up getting recommended Project Moon stuff. I can imagine, especially with 3 games and big world building. But I appreciate it. Hi Helen, welcome. But when I'm excited for her Canto, I haven't read Hellscreen. That also is something that's gonna come up. The ones that I'm less familiar with their source material, it's a little harder for me to read into it. Hi Nomad, hi Splood, welcome everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming to chat. We'll talk about the sort of... I'll talk about... I guess that'll be safe for a little bit extra. But our main thing... Akashi Roshi is my favorite sinner. I still love talking about her, but I'm glad you love them all. Me too! I think, at the moment, she's my sister's favorite sinner. So again, it felt bad to put her on the lower end for me. It's just... But the thing I can say about everybody is they'll most certainly rise. It's gonna be hard, because, like, I can't imagine putting everybody in, like, A tier, but maybe they will be. I'd want to... It's inevitable that there's characters that, like, resonate with you a little bit more. But it's... I don't dislike anybody, and I appreciate the way everybody's written, and I appreciate their development. But I'm sure I'll have more to say when I read Hellscreen. I also want to look at that anime adaptation. I think there is, because it's a shorter one, and I also like looking at the other literature. I'll talk about that when we get to the second half of the stream, which will be about Canto 7. What's the main things about Ryoshu? I think I'm just waiting to see where things go. I think there is a pretty big consensus of that the whole motherhood thing is about her daughter, which may be the sword. Oh, I don't know if that picked up. I heard a dog bark, but it's not mine. What is Kim Kitsuragi tier? That is the highest tier. That is the highest tier a dog can... Dog, sorry. Oh, wait. That is my stray dog coming home. She was at the groomers. Her bark. Maybe that was her. Sorry for the distraction. This made me jump a little bit. Kim Kitsuragi tier is the highest tier a character I can bequeath upon a character, because Kim Kitsuragi is an excellent character. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, you can see I'm not used to tier list. Come on. And that's Otis. Now, just my notes. Otis is hard for me because I've had a hard time getting a real read on her character. Oh, you know what? You know what? I've talked about my Frey dog. She loves her puzzle and she barks when she wants her puzzle. That's probably... I asked my sister to give her a puzzle when she gets home from her groom. So King, this is Otis, or Odysseus. Otis being the name that she gives. I think in our English translations it's translated as nobody, but it's the name Odysseus gives to Polyphemus. So yeah, Odysseus, but I agree with that. Otis is hard to read. There's nothing in the picture. She's one character that came out quite different. If you were around for like super early reveals, I expected her to be a much more serious character, but they use her a lot for like comedy relief. She's funny. I was not expecting the... I don't think there's another way to put it, but the bootlicking to Dante is super, super funny. Even if it's not serious, but and they use it well. One of my favorite moments is in Time Killing Time, when she just gets sad that she's not picked. When Dante doesn't pick her for like the special squad. The detective squad. It's just like she just gives ellipses and that's it. But she's another one that has some really nice moments in her identity. The more serious, the more revealing moments tend to be in the identity stories. I think particularly the warp story, her talking about the Odyssey a little bit. She's a good leader. Anything about the... Oh yeah, okay, yes, that's it. That's exactly. I wish that in voice acting. But the other thing that's been around since, like, pre-release, maybe since her poster, was the idea that she's a traitor in some respects. One, because she's not giving her name. Two, because there's the Trojan horse in the background of her, like, splash art. There's... I guess her voice actor as well, and the sort of redacted information in her Update stories have a lot of betrayal themes. There's also the Magic Bullet story where she says she would trick the devil and kill herself before she heard her loved ones. Yes. That's the other one that stands out for me. Warp and Magic Bullet, probably. Her watch is also the Trojan horse. We get these little bits, but the actual text, in terms of traitordom, I mean, I think she has her own motives, but I don't see much actual text to support that she dislikes the other traitors. Oh, BL Otis, Lily Slater teacher. It's been so long since I read that one. I found her arguing with Gregor on their views of soldiers and sacrifice in the Smoke War. Oh yeah, there's that. Yeah. There's a lot going on, but I see a lot of jokes about her being a traitor, which is, I mean, it's just gonna happen. It's been a meme for a while, but there's not much in the text to like strongly point to things. And like, from what we know about Limbus Company, if she does do something, I can't imagine it's outside of what Faust expects. I think she would betray us if it meant it was the only way to end her Odyssey. I don't think she's already double agent. Exactly. And sort of the question of what is the Odyssey? The Odyssey is the book I've probably read the most. I've read it twice and I've read the Iliad 3 times, so there's a lot to go on there. And we have, oh, 1 second. So cute! Okay, excuse me. I said my stray dog was at the groomer. I'm happy to see her. Yeah, what is the Odyssey? What will it take to... What does it take to end it? So I'm super curious about what's gonna come up. Also important to read the Aeneid. I've also read the Aeneid. It's been a while though. I read a whole bunch of those. For a class. Could be a Koito situation. I'm not super familiar with Golden Kamuy, but I'm willing to look that up. It's interesting. It's interesting to have perspectives from people that don't know and just hearing me talk. So, again, almost certain she's gonna rise just because I'm so compelled by, like, what you can do with the themes of the Odyssey, and what are they gonna do with Penelope, Telemachus, so I assume are gonna be important. I mean, I think you can make such an interesting character from those two, but are they even alive still? Who knows? The one thing, some of the theories that sort of pop out is also like her identity, because that's hidden. I've seen like some very big like part of the head identities. My general feeling about the characters is I prefer them being a little less important initially, although that's kind of gone out of the window now. Wait, sure to be said. Hi Sag, welcome! And I'm a stranger in a strange land, if that's a book that's also featured. Well, The Stranger is featured. I'm not super leaning towards like the head or an arbiter, for instance, but I was wrong about Dawn, so we'll see. It's just a general feeling like I like the character sort of coming from nothing and then developing. Not like House, for instance, is nobody, for instance. Penelope is probably alive. Oh yeah, the funeral veil thing. I have zero clue what's going on here. We are ranking characters from classic literature. Otis being a real big shot, that's true. Head of a corp. It could be, I don't know. I'm not, I guess I should say I'm not feeling like she's part of the head, for instance. But there's just very little to go on. I'm more interested in the concept of like the Odyssey than her identity. John the Duck is a member of the UD chat. That's certainly a possibility, given Theus's possible relationship to anything. Oh, I-Corp could be Ithaca Corp. Oh, that's interesting. I like that. Those are the main things about... Oh, but I had one more thought, but I might have just forgotten it. Oh, I hate it when that happens. Otis. Yeah, maybe. I'm also super interested in seeing more of interactions with Gregor since they clash so well. Exactly. I'll talk about that when we get to Gregor. Almost certain I'm very interested in her Canto, though it's probably for everybody. I'll talk about whose Canto I'm most looking forward to, besides the one that's happening next week. But next comes Honglu. Please move. So, this is the source material I'm least familiar with. So that also makes it the hardest for me to have any even sort of direction for where this could go. And I don't remember if there's been a word count list post Canto 6, and I think I saw one for Canto 5, and he was actually the sinner that had talked the least, even less than Merceau, who was like noticeably quiet. And they sort of have... 10 Killing Time was really good, because actually I like when they acknowledge that he's not that talkative, but I like what they've... And his Uptie stories, they give a little bit of sense of his family situation, but I don't think I've gotten like the big hints like Otis and Ryoshu. Maybe a little bit about the eye and like his Liu Uptie story. He's another one that I'm like, I am positive once I know more, he's gonna rise for everybody. I guess I can also refer to... I'm gonna probably refer to Ezgu's sort of census, because that's one of the only sort of like overall ways of gleaning people's thoughts. I don't think it's in any ways a representation of the fandom at whole, but I'm gonna reference a few things from there that I've noticed. But yeah, he's on the lower end. What I like about his writing is I think he's very diplomatic. Very, very diplomatic in the way he often has these really introspective he'll put out these really introspective thoughts that are like very pointed, like he points things out, but in a way that like won't necessarily make the other people mad or like upset them. I think when he was, you can joke about him being melted by acid in Canto 5, but I felt like that was an intentional sort of, he doesn't want to scare people. He wants people to get a move on, but he doesn't want to start screaming about acid, because we know like Sinclair freaks out very easily, and Ishmael was already sort of on thin ice. Hi Kikia, welcome. No worries, no worries. I like how they're slowly showing he's far smarter than he shows, and he's more than a rich boy. I think some of his comments are where he sort of he also makes Sequith mad for punishing. Yeah, there's that. He can be a little bit sassier, but sort of does it in a way that portrays him as clueless. I'm still curious about his art in the trailer for Limbus, where people are literally climbing on top of each other to reach him while he's just gazing at the dandelion. I know! And as Helem said, Isang was like the least popular character before. Maybe Honglu will genuinely be a space rock. The eye is the big question. Later in the stream when I'm gonna talk about Battle Pass stuff, and I had a thought there, but so we'll come back to that. I wouldn't take the TGS art as canon. That's true. I think thematically, we can think about them thematically, though. Because there was that sort of unused Heathcliff art, and obviously the events turned out very different than what actually happened. But I think the broad strokes, like I was surprised that they had. I noticed when they were showing all the art, like things like Ryoshu was a bit. They had her with the red string, but it seemed less like a particular event compared to the stuff that did end up in the game. I didn't necessarily believe that those were actual CGs at the time, but I think thematically we can still look at them. Yeah, Honglu seems silly, but his remarks are often important. Exactly. That's what I... And I liked what he had on Killing Time. It didn't go super deep, but it did. His base ego gives sinking, and his sixth gloom. There's stuff going on there. I'm excited for him to get his moment. He's like there's room, but I like him, but we have to. He hasn't had his time yet. Oh, he's also physically one of the strongest sinners. Yeah, I forgot about that. He's when they're like bicycling on the boat. He's just chill. Good morning. Tier list. It's I'm using it. I don't actually really want to call this a tier list. It's more like a medium for me to talk about where the characters are and their writing and where they are. Vibe list. I considered calling the stream a whole bunch of different things, but then I couldn't figure out like exact right words besides like just discussion. Now we're gonna move into A tier. Gonna put Sinclair. Ooh, I can't remember. Inesgu, was he the most hated? Oh, why are there two Vergiliuses on the list? I don't know. That's a good question. Oh yeah, just Honglu. I'm sure his Canto's gonna be... I'm excited for the art design there. Sinclair's the least like... What I want to say about Sinclair is in like a different game, I think he could have been my favorite. In a different game with a different cast, he could have been my favorite because he has a lot of character traits I really like. One, I like bird themes. I really like this sort of meat characters that are like unexpectedly strong, particularly when they get serious. But I think I can see why people don't. He is the sort of kid of the group, and I think they've done well handling that. It's very easy in a cast of like more adult characters to not like that kind of character. Like I tend towards like the shy ones in a lot of types of stories, like the shy ones that are actually cool and tough. You have to appreciate them and sort of overcome. When you're shyer and like overcoming it is like a huge sort of type of trope I like. Not even like overcoming it, not becoming like unshy, but still going through things. Sinclair having his problems resolved so early in the story may have actually been to a detriment. That's what I'm gonna... The thing I want to say, this is sort of a problem with all the 1 to 3 cantos. I wouldn't say that like any of them fulfilled them. What I want to say about Sinclair is he is at the very beginning of his book. Cromer is a character who's dealt with in like the first couple chapters. I can't remember, maybe even chapter 2. It's been a while since I read it. And I feel like his development is going to be very linked to... I think his development needs to be linked to certain events of the book, because obviously there's like huge characters and huge development that happens across the book. And because of that, the Sinclair we have now is kind of frozen, because we haven't, until like Eva shows up, for instance. There's tons of stuff before he develops a drinking problem. He's sort of stuck at this very early stage, and there's only so much you can do with that. Karma was also dealt with in the first couple chapters, yeah. That's sort of my... The clear hasn't revealed too much, but they're doing fun things with him. I loved a moment that made me laugh a lot in Murder in the Warp Express was when they realize the key cards have been melted, and he just goes, "Everybody calm down," and he can hold his own, and that sort of meekness, it contrasts well, and I like his rapport with Ryoshu. But he's gonna be important. I'd imagine he's gonna be like being so tied to Damien, gonna be one of the most important. He just needs time. Same with Gregor. So I understand why people don't necessarily resonate with his type of writing, even if I like it. But in general, yeah, I think his story's on hold. Exactly. He's just stuck until whatever sort of like event that's meant to happen in the book sort of occurs. And he'll probably mature, he'll get a drinking problem. Things will happen. He's still stuck in his egg. But I appreciate what he has going on. Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot of Enkavalin addiction arc. I like that too. We'll see. There's so much to work with this book. Not just in terms of plot, but symbolism. Like there's characters I don't know where they are in terms of the book. Sinclair's so definitely at the beginning. And his Canto, even if he did have a little bit of an arc there, I don't think anything was necessarily solved. It was more just sort of setting things up, setting up his conflicts. I wish I had a little bit more to say, because as I said, in a different game, he could be my favorite. But next we're gonna have the other character who's been sort of in the same situation. Oh, do you think Abraxas will be a thing? I can't imagine it not being, but I have no idea how. So see, we're having the first 3 Canto characters who had the problem, and I think I really, let's see, what did I write? Oh, actually, I ran out of notes. I ran out of notes for Rhodia. I couldn't figure out how to put into words, so I'll have to try and do it now. I like Rhodia. She's also one of the ones I did not get to read. I did not read her book. I don't think we knew that we were jumping right into, we would have 3 Cantos when the game released. It's Argalia from Library Runa. Hi, Argalia. So I didn't read Crime and Punishment, but I definitely want to go back. I'm thinking maybe during on the Wait for Ryoshu's chapter where there's, when it's a shorter book and I can have more time, I'll go back and read Crime and Punishment, because I don't even know where she sort of exists in terms of the book. Rodion is a weird situation, but I feel like her developing so little is a part of her developing. Exactly. Exactly. Rune's also at the start, considering the Limbus start. Okay, that's good to know. I wasn't sure how far in the book the crime is. I actually really like the sort of gimmick of wanting to be special. It's a different, I guess there's sort of like, in media we sort of have the Chunibyo type of trope, and she's like such a different take on that, because I think it is kind of a relatable thing, like want to be more than you are, want to like, and being like jealous of other people being special, and like wanting to be past your means, and I don't, and so yeah, I don't know how that necessarily would fit into the greater themes of Crime and Punishment, if it even does. But I think it's a really compelling and relatable, especially in a cast where we're in a city, even the entire setting, people have like basically superpowers, and her watching other people solve their issues, and she's sort of stuck. I really really liked her thing in Time Killing Time, that even at the end when the photo was being taken, she couldn't even muster up a smile there. She just was broken. And like, maybe that's not, maybe she doesn't, I don't think it's fair to compare trauma. That's not something I want to go into, although I think some people do. Maybe she hasn't dealing with maybe it's something really different from the way that everybody else is handling it. But yeah, she also has that line in Murder on the Warp Express where she just where you like take something away. I forget exactly. You like remove something, there's nothing there, kind of thing. It's that emptiness. Thank you for hanging out, King. I appreciate it, especially when you're not familiar with the series. I'll see you later. But so there's that part, and then the other, when she sort of is the mood maker, big sisterly part, that's fun. It's just it's something the cast sort of needs. I really like that part in Canto 5 where she pulls Ishmael aside to try and be like, let's tone it down a little bit, and Ishmael just goes like, we're not friends. Or she actually says like, we're not that close. But I don't, she's also sort of, and she can be kind of mean. I think, oh yeah, as Pardo just said, the sweeper noises with Sinclair. There's some lines earlier on where she's like poking fun at calling at Gregor's arm. which is just nice little touches. Just adds a little bit of nuance. But it's hard for me to like give a full evaluation because she's, besides, I like where she's going and I like her character generally. Yeah, big sibling energy is also in the book. Rodion is protective and plays around with his sister and like, oh, I like that. Okay. I was wondering where that came from. She's a character. I'm very curious where that goes, especially as we like move into things, and I think as the story just like expands, we're getting involved in these bigger events and other characters maybe start developing ego and she's still left alone. How do we resolve that? What's the answer there? Does she find a way to become like special in her own way? Is she gonna remain special and that's okay? Or not special and that's okay? There's a lot of potential there that I'm personally interested in. But she did get hit and like not just stalled development, but because she particularly tries to hide it. I think they sort of hid it for too long, so time killing time was really good to just sort of peel back some of those layers and like remind people. I'll talk about Canto 2 when we get to the other tier list though. Let's see. But Merceau. For Merceau, it's just, yeah, I'm back. Yeah. If I had to pick a Canto that I'm most excited for, besides, I think like after Dawn's, because I like Dawn, it would be Merceau's Canto, just because The Stranger is such a wonderful book, and I can't even imagine what they're going to do with it. There's a lot of potential with this, obviously with like the sun imagery and the symbolism, but the themes are so rich. Like, I don't know. That's about his Canto. I just think he's neat. He's another one that's hard to... Oh yeah, The Stranger is also one of the director's top 3, Minor Yoshi and Otis. Knocking someone out distorting, that's an incredible moment. He has his moments. I wish I could say something deeper about his character, but there's just not that much to go on. I think one of the moments that sits with me the most is from his trailer, where he just starts talking and talking and talking. I would define myself as someone who's not the strongest communicator, which is partially why I stream, to improve with that, to improve my way of expressing things. I mean, certainly not to like Merceau's way, but I'm appreciative of characters who are, I like that, and then everybody's just kind of fine with it. But he's cool. I enjoy what he brings. He has some... He's probably had more like comedy moments than like depth. But when we get it is Canto, I can't wait. Oh yeah, and like, how are we dealing with Mother? Why do you know about distortion? But it's like, from very specific character writing, I can't... There's bits and pieces. And in terms of... Oh, he's become noticeably more proactive. That's a good point, too. He does chains of others on his own, which is fun. First in-story ego use didn't even have to be asked. Would be an interesting idea if he becomes, Oh, see ya, hello! Thank you for dropping by. If, for any reason, he becomes too independent, for instance... I had an idea for Canto 7 that I don't think has more to do with Dante, but this was like before Murder on the Orient Express, but so maybe I'll get to that later. So I just think he's neat. If anybody else feels that, it's a perfectly valid reason to like a character, even if I had more to say about other characters. Sometimes I just think they're neat. Shame about most of his IDs, though. I would say, okay, to get to a little bit of Canto 7, he's due for something. I assume he's gonna get something new. I was looking at spending my shard boxes, and I'm missing Diechi and Rhino, and I thought, I don't really feel the need to shard these. I mean, even if Rhino's usable, I assume, because we're getting into bleed season, I don't know if I'd... Regret Ego was a blessing, it does help. But again, I was looking at my list of his IDs and like, he's missing. Is Diechi not very good? I haven't used it because I don't have it. I think from what people said, he kind of messes with the other Diechi gameplay. Don't quote me on it. The tank support. Diechi's mediocre. Maybe he'll get a Zvine now, which we can talk about later. I don't want to distract from the tier list, which reminds me I will try and timestamp this after. But yeah, I don't think there's any reason to use him. It's already hard to choose who to put on the sinking team. Diechi doesn't go there. Okay, next up. Oh, actually, that's wrong. Spoilers. So, Greg is the first one I'm like, it actually hurts to put him here, because in most I want to call him one of my favorite characters. He's always been one I really, really liked. But he's again stuck with the Canto 1 to 3 problem of lack of meaningful development. I'll talk more about Canto 1 again when we get to it in a little bit. And I feel like he's gotten even less in some respects than I guess he had. I guess he had a little bit in the Intervallos, but I feel like a lot of his writing in the Cantos has become, a lot of the times he has like funny quips, which is fine. He's a great voice actor. There's huge potential for him. And then his IDs tend to be so different. I've heard the interpretation is because he's so adaptable, which is why his IDs... it's sort of the cockroach thing, is why his IDs tend to change so much, but it's hard to get like a Gregor thing from them. Like, Linton Gregor, I don't think I'm learning anything about Gregor himself really from that. It's kind of just there. The one thing though is, and he's such an interesting character. He tends to get very small moments compared to the other sinners, but he has such an interesting backstory, which we know about, and just being a little bit older, having this experience, and he's one of the characters that has this, like, his trauma is physical, and people can notice it. So I was really happy when that was finally sort of acknowledged again in Murder on the Warp Express. And then you see him in the CG just sort of hiding his arm. I understand why we don't do it a lot of the time when we're meeting like a new cast, because it would just sort of like, there's not necessarily a reason for it in certain scenes, and it would just kind of hurt the pacing. In some earlier bits there was a little bit of rapport with Ishmael, which I really liked. But there's so much there, and it's just not being used, and it's sort of the problem with just having this very large cast, and I don't fault any of the writers for not always being able to capitalize on it, but Greg, There's so much I want to hear from him. And he will certainly get stuff. We know that for sure. He has the library. I'll get rid of this. And the metamorphosis is such a fascinating story and themes, and the way they're approaching it, tying into like the isolation of being from a fallen wing and a veteran. I mean, I love the metamorphosis. But I just want more, so that's where it like hurts me, because I want more, and I really, really like him. But at this very, like, if we're to take things at this, like, very particular point in time, he's high up because I like him, but he hasn't had a lot of good moments. The potential man of story development. He needs time, indeed. I just don't think there's room in Cantos for, like, everyone to have a moment, but at least, like, I like his moments to not just be, like, a funny line. He's also very much tied to her infant development. Yeah. Okay, so I spoiled this a little bit. But Yisang. I've always quite liked him. Even before his Canto. I wish I had some of those earlier tier lists now. He has... And that's, I mean, partially it's because two things. I like bird imagery, I like bird things, and I like researcher type characters. Those are just things I tend to gravitate towards, so we always fulfilled that. He has this sort of like unique way of communicating, which I appreciate. I like that everyone's just saying, he's a good boy, everybody agrees, and he also had some of the most notable development. Him and Ishmael are probably up there with like the most complete arcs, which I don't always know if it's the best things for the characters, but I guess he's also I just like him. I like how yeah, he will always be my favorite. I love poetic, melancholic characters. I'm trying to think if there's other characters I'd like put in that same, I also think like that, but he's really sold me on that. And Fly Broken Wings just coming out of nowhere will always like cement him hard, like in my heart. I just like him. He just has a lot of stuff I like. I wish I had like something more in depth, and I think there's something inherently relatable about overcoming depression for everybody. Absolutely everybody. And he's going to remain important because we have the whole League of Seven to deal with. And that's something I'm excited for, because I don't think when we met up with Rim, I never got like these songs like deep feelings about what was happening. So I want to see more of that. And I like the way I like him trying to using the fact that he went through his arc to like be a bit of a peacemaker in some respects. I think we've had some bits where he's particularly Warp Express when he reaches out to Faust, Ishmael as well, and at the end. And then when he's trying to do the volleyball and sort of interjects in when Ishmael and Heathcliff are fighting. They're just good moments. He's the most genuine. Oh yeah, just being an architect is just a good concept, which I know is like the actual author's thing. Inventor, architect, poetic, they're all just parts I like. And I wish I could go into like a deep character analysis here. I just like him. And I'll talk about it more with a little bit of another character, actually. Next up, going into S tier. Faust I would also put as... I just think she's neat. I actually, I'd probably put her in I just think she's neat tier beforehand. She's always sort of been an S tier character for me. Even I can understand why people didn't like her. But again, I like researcher types. I like academic types. And she gets some of the most gorgeous art. If you've seen my Limbus streams, you know that she's my Seven Faust Unidolized is my home screen, and she's home screen meta for me. I just love that art. I love her lines. Because I like to play Limbus at tea time. And then she's also having tea time. It's perfect. I don't think she's ever gonna... I don't think I can imagine changing that. I say drinking my tea. I'll be curious if something ever tops my home screen meta. And she's chill voice lines there. No, I just like her talking about tea. And I really like the 7 association. It's still probably my favorite association. Which is why I wish I liked playing them more. But she's genuinely really funny. Oh, so again, going back to like pre-release. She was different from what I expected, because I think our first profile, like, what was the term that they used? But they like described as a sort of know-it-all type, which she is, but it still was like portrayed. I expected sort of more. I didn't know what to expect just from her like splash art, and they described her as like a bit more snooty, and it was sort of done in a like different way than I expected, but I liked it. She may be like a know-it-all and lets you know it, but it's not necessarily in a mean way, and she can be really funny. She has so many funny moments. Oh, her profile says that she's exhausting to deal with. Insufferable, thank you. I couldn't check those right at the moment. She's not annoying for a character archetype, so I think they did a really good job. And like there's in Canto 2, she has her line where she's, I'll become a Faust who is used to uncertainty. And then I mean, there's a lot to say about Warp Express, but her moment very early on when she's like waking everybody up from their like sleep pods, and they're all like, are we there? No. Oh, we're here? No. That was fat. No. Was great. I've always liked her. I mean, I played gacha games sometimes. It's okay to just like a character for the art. Everlasting is probably one of the best arts in the game. It's gorgeous. Oh yeah, Isan getting cut off, and he's like, he didn't even say anything, and she just went no. But so she was probably always around like high A, low S kind of thing. And then I didn't expect her to get the sort of development that she did this early. But Murder on the Warp Express just made me so happy for the direction that they're taking her. Where when she's not connected, when she's not part of the Discord channel, when she's not part of the network, she's a lot more unsure and uncertain. So it seems like the direction they are sort of working their way to is like finding her own identity, so to speak. And I love that. I love her sort of, I love Ishmael and Isang sort of recognizing that she's sort of, how they describe, I forget exactly the words that they use, but I love it. And I'm like, she could rise as well, even from here, as we see that direction. Because, like, finding independence, finding your own self, whatever her actual deal is. I kind of thought from the beginning she might be the homunculus even before the game came out, and not maybe the actual Faust. However that works, we don't really know. But yeah, she's also a bit naive. It's a really good. It's a really interesting, fun direction and appealing. I don't remember if Escu's when he closed his census. Because I don't know how that's affected things, but I know people definitely not liked Faust and have come around on her a little bit. But I adore her. I'd say everybody. I like everybody. We're getting to like adore. And have one more sip of tea. I'm gonna lose my voice if I keep talking this much about every character, so let's be careful. We love Fluid Sack. I mean, Faust here. And then she has to be on every team, which I don't hate, but it is funny that not having Faust can be kind of a detriment because Fluid Sack is so powerful, and I think the only way to like, bye Helene, have a good class. The VOD will be here for you. I appreciate you. You'll be here in spirit. You can be part of the network. I talked about in like one of my other streams, I feel like sound to your health issues. I mean, if you have them, you should use her because she heals everybody and herself. And like can be positive SP. Okay, so let's keep moving. Please go where I want you to. So, Heathcliff. Heathcliff's interesting for me because he's not a character I normally gravitate to or like or tend to. Like, as I said, I put Rosho's a bit lower because I don't like don't tend to like super violent characters. Or like the sort of hothead types. But I found him so appealing just from the beginning. Just the way he speaks. And I give like huge props to his voice actor. There's a way he goes from like 0 to 100. And just a way that's so genuine. There's like, I'm trying to remember, there's some lines where he's like, maybe it's like in the casino, where he just starts going like, come at me, or what else? I mean, there's obviously Chicken Event. When like, near the beginning of Canto 3, he's like sitting... He's like sitting near the window. Okay, one sec, I have to cough actually. Yeah. In Canto 3, he's like sitting near the window of the bus and like the nail comes through and he just yells. He's one that I super appreciated. Oh, just checking chat. And his VA is godlike. He's incredible. I love that he streams. I remember, I didn't recognize that Matt question mark was, obviously I didn't know Matt question mark's identity or anything. But I recognized he sounded to me a bit like Nemo from Library of Ruina, which I pointed out. Which they do reuse voice actors, like Linton Izzy's songs, so I didn't think much of it. Yes, some of my, especially early on, favorite uptie stories. I love the she story where you have like Ishmael in the background. Otis is the same VA as Bina, right? Yeah. A couple of them share. Ryoshu is Myo, Ishmael is Angelica. Is it Rhodia, Zhao, and a bunch of others? Those are like the main overlaps. And his she uptie story where he's just killing everybody, and Ishmael's like, we're supposed to be assassins, and he's like, there'll be no witnesses, we just kill them all. Oh, Boris is Sinclair, that too. Oh, and Heathcliff is Nemo. He's also, I think he's Maxim? Boris is Sinclair is really funny. Rodion is Glura, yeah. And Elena. Oh, that could... Elena cameo, we have the voice actress already. I mean, I could talk, everybody's in Cookie right now, I can also talk about that. Ishmael is Squid Ink Cookie. Oh, Merso is Pluto. Thank you. I can't remember everybody. But I just enjoyed them, and I've mentioned it a few times on stream, but I just love it's my favorite sort of trio, even though they haven't been that together, is Ishmael, Dawn, and Heathcliff, which is why I want redemption for the she a whole bunch. Because I love that whole dynamic they propose in the she identities, even if we don't get to see it that much. But his 7 identity is also really good. Really good intuition. I like showing that. He's just... so he really surprised me when I was like making these tier lists. I kept putting him up so high. I just think he's neat. And I don't actually think his Canto changed him that much. I liked him from the get-go, although reading Wuthering Heights helped. Yeah, he's one I wish I could like do a whole deep character analysis on, but I don't even think I need to. I just like him. Like I feel like saying unexpected depth isn't fair, because they all have depth. They all should have depth. And I'm interested to see where his everything goes with him. Actually, I'll talk another reason why I really like him, but that will come in like the other tier list. And then why is it so hard to put them right in the right spots? Dawn. Dawn. So another one that I've liked since the reveal. Another character I've liked since we like first got her. Even when we got our earliest and we only knew her name. We only had the like crossed out portrait of her. I was like, Don Quixote, even if I'm not super familiar with the source material at that point. I am more now. That concept is so fun, particularly to put like a sort of noble knight type in the city where that just doesn't exist. And then we get her actual reveal. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm fairly sure when we had those crossed out portraits, I think in my old LobCorp streams when we're talking about them, I'm actually pretty sure I call Dawn and Faust guys. We didn't know. I had this really distinct image of Faust as like a really gaunt man. But then anyway, we get her splash art and she's like, she has all the fixer pins and I'm like, that is so good to like almost be an audience surrogate. As like a big fan of like, they're basically like cool fixers, the colors, they're basically superheroes. And it just, even before we heard her, I'm like, this concept is so good and strong and I like it because to me, she represents a thing that I really like about Project. The thing that I even like appreciate the most about Project Moon's writing, which is this big theme of like hope in the face of despair. No matter how terrible things get, it is always worth it to like break the cycle, to forgive and move on. Humanity is worth it. We see that both in Lobotomy Corporation and Library of Ruina. Break the cycle. And she's a representative of that. And I didn't... Oh yeah, 100%. It was vindicating seeing that theming specifically brought up in the interview. Exactly. I was like, I'm glad. I'm sure it's intentional, but it's a theme that just means so much to me. There's same thing with like the original Madoka, Pulamajin Madoka Magica, still, or Mahou Shoujo Madoka Magica, or Magica, whichever way you want to go, still just sticks with me. It's worth it to believe in humanity. I'll talk more about, I think I'll have to talk more about her at the end when we go into like Canto 7, but then we get the reveal of Murder in the Warp Express, and it's like, whoa. I had to think about it, but I had to sit on it a little bit. I find that reveal so fascinating. But we'll save that for like talking about Don Quixote, in general. But I can't see her really change anything happening in Canto 7 changing this positioning. I can't see her going down, at least. No. But we'll have to see. Okay, I'll save that. I have to save that. It's still 600 pages to read for Don Quixote. Am I cooked? I would say, well, are you including the book? Are we talking about both books? Are we also including the other book that the other author, the fanfiction book? I would say definitely watch Man from La Mancha, though. There's another, I don't know, because some of the books, they... Oh, Calm Stranger, thank you! Oh yeah, you can see my new little animation! Thank you! Dawn Supremacy! Thank you! I love this animation. Happy I get to show it off. There's some assets I thought I should save, and then I was like, I don't want to save some of these assets. Everyone needs to see. I hope you enjoy the emotes. That's Dawn. That's mostly, we'll talk more about her in the second half of the stream. I guess I should say, I don't know if I remember this. We're not gonna rate these guys. They sort of, I don't think they're, we can compare them in the same way. Because they're just handled very differently. Because she is orange, she goes in the highest tier of all, Kim Kitsuragi tier. And I have... Why is Varg on here twice? I don't know. And I've never... I mean, if you've been on my streams anytime before, you've known that Ishmael's always been my favorite. I've never gone super in-depth into it. I wanted to finally have that opportunity. I wrote like a whole page. Personally, you're shocked. Maybe let's put this. We can have that back now. There. My buddy. My favorite buddy. And I have like some charms in front of me as well that like sit on like the computer stand. So Ishmael, I've had an interesting experience with her because, so again, if you're back in the well, it's not, was the first release was the first release was the Notepad stream, but when the Limbus account was first made, back when it even had a different name, what we got was we had these headshots with like the eyes crossed out, we had like a quote and an emoji, and even when we just had those like crossed out faces, I was like, I like the look of this one. I like the look of this one. I'm choosing this one. And Ishmael seems like an interesting concept. She was the first we saw. Yes, she is the first. She was the first revealed character, technically. And then so it's like I'm choosing this. I feel like it's a natural thing for like any game with like a big cast of characters. You go, particularly with gacha, you're like, that's the one. And that might not necessarily stay the same. With Mahoyaku, which is my other favorite mobile game, although I read the stories, I don't actually play it. There's no English. Mahoyaku, my other favorite mobile game, with characters inspired by classic literature, including Faust and Heathcliff, and music by Millie. My favorite there was Nero, and then Faust became my favorite, which is why I made Faust my Giga Nugget in Lobotomy Corporation. So I was like, I like this one. And then we start getting the splash art, and her splash comes out, and it's like immediately so evocative, because she has this bright red hair and this like dark background. I mean, obviously if you take like, oh, we're going after the book, she's the sole survivor in the city, which is immediately, and we sort of know about the Great Lakes, that's immediately like, oh, that's such a good concept. Similar with Dawn. And then there's so many like mysteries to her design, like her headband is really specific. I've always thought it looks like rope, so it's probably something important, especially, and later as we see it shows up in most of her identities. Why is her coat ripped? And the thing that always really got me was just no highlights in her eyes. And I just love that original splash so much. One day I want to get like one of those clear files for it. It's gotta be my favorite splash out art in terms of design. It's like, oh, the soul, even if I hadn't read Moby Dick, it's like the sole survivor in this setting. It's such a good concept. And then same with her original trailer and seeing her ego. You see her stag harpoon, her original ego splash art is like her in the water. And we start getting, we get it more explicitly that she's the sole survivor and after the book, and it's like, I love this, I love this. But the other thing that was always sort of an interesting experience is I think she's actually quite different from what I expected. And there were some like comics and fan art that people did that I think also had like similar expectations that I did. I think there was a general sense. I think one thing that influenced this is somebody made a height chart, but just based on like those original splash images, and Ishmael was the shortest. Which made, when we eventually got the actual height chart and Gregor was really short, that actually made it a reveal. But yeah, quite a few sinners have consistent things. They all do. They all do. That was fun. So I think the sort of the expectation, at least I had for her, and I sort of saw it with other art, and also like the way she's drawn without any highlight in her eyes and her being short, she gave off this sort of like doll-like appearance, I think. A little bit like how Heron actually is. I was sort of expecting a little, not totally, not as sort of young as Karen is, but I was expecting a much quieter character. But then we actually get the game and it's quite different. She talks a lot, and she's sort of acting as the straight man for a lot of things, which is good. But it was an important role, especially early in the game, to have sort of one of the more like normal characters. And I still liked her, I just didn't know where that direction was gonna take. I'm just looking at my notes as well. But her development up into her Canto, I guess in general, C, or the Magic Hell Bus, SEA, I'm never sure what the actual title is, and Canto 5 was just exactly what I wanted for her character, and more. And more. And one thing I ended up, I guess this sort of ties everything together, but one thing I really appreciated was the portrayal of OCD, because her character sort of profile says like has obsessive or compulsive neuroses, and I did check the term, and it does seem to be in Japanese it seems to be exactly the term for just OCD, even if it's less explicit in English. In Korean seemed to be like an adjacent term, but not knowing Korean I can't really break down those nuances. But I actually read some papers on this because I wasn't sure how to talk about it. Because I always thought portrayals of OCD tended to fall into like very specific categories for me, as I've seen. Often like super neurotic, or maybe even the villains who get like angry when something doesn't go their way. And I actually found a paper that said like exactly that. There are two categories. There's the people, they use a specific term for it, but basically super neurotic. And it's sort of led to like in general I think a sort of expectation about what OCD is. Ishmael's actually a really different, much stronger and more nuanced portrayal, and her thing is so there's sometimes I don't super, I'm just thinking and I have in my notes how to put this. So Ishmael's thing is she likes to be prepared. That is a compulsion. And actually, in the unit that just came out yesterday, as of this video, the Zwei Ishmael, that's exactly what happened. She is prepared, and the people who are prepared die because she is prepared. She survives. But you see this sort of throughout the early Cantos. There's like, in the beginning of Canto 3, and she wants other people to be prepared to exactly, but in the beginning of Canto 3, she's like, she's listing off everything they have to do to get through the like security checkpoint, and Ryosho actually like gets mad at her. She really likes the plan in Canto 2 and is not happy when it falls apart. And this all sort of, oh, Ishmael's still the only sinner to read the debrief documents. It's sort of become a character trope, which makes me laugh, because actually I don't believe that everybody would ignore them, but we can give that to Ishmael. And this all just really ties back to her trauma about the Great Lakes. She wants to have some sort of control over what happens because she's went through so much. And I think one thing, point that I really like is Heathcliff in Canto 5 sort of like points out, why are we just going off of an old wives' tale for like summoning the pallid whale? And she's like, because that's literally all there is. That's all there is, but we still have to do it. And everything on the Great Lakes is wild and inexplicable. And she often like and she has that thing where she's, before they go on in like, she has that line, what's the thing where she goes about like to tuna tsunamis and your mate can be taken away at any given time. It is just a place where anything can happen and you can't necessarily prepare for it, so this is the best way to survive, is to do everything you can. And there's always, even before the Pequod, when she was, I mean, we see that in the end of Canto 5, when she chose to go to the sea because she wanted to die, that was also a point where she wanted just some little bit of control over her life. I'm using the term control, but don't take that in like a bad sense, because I feel like if you say somebody wants control, that can be taken as a bad thing, but like wanting control is a pretty normal aspect. And I mean, there's these little bits where she sort of I think she bites her nails a little bit. And the other thing about OCD, there's the check in the dungeon of Canto 5 where there's one check where you can check the boat repeatedly. And that increases your SP. However, even if Ishmael's SP is increased there, I mean that's compulsive checking, that's natural reading of that. Even if you do that, she still has her passive, which starts her SP at -25. So ultimately it doesn't actually solve the anxiety. It's just that it's that tiny little bit of storytelling that I really, really appreciate. The other thing about Ishmael is it's another part of the writing I like, is Project Moon isn't afraid to depict trauma as this like angry, ugly thing, yet it's still something that you can work through and overcome. I said it when streaming Canto 5. Every time she was like lashing out, I was like, I like where this is going. So this is the kind of thing I like to see, because I like to see the other characters still be willing to, even if she's isolating herself. Particularly Dante is still willing to be like, and Heathcliff later, is like, we still accept her. There's a line I love in Canto 5 where Dante's asking Ishmael about the future, and they end up saying something along the lines of, the most I got to offer her now is a hopeful immediate tomorrow. They're still willing to put everything for her, and that's just sort of the things that I really appreciate in writing. So yeah, those are the main points. I'll talk about it a bit more as we talk about Canto 5. But she's my favorite. She's a very, very important character to me. For those reasons, and she gets through it. The one sort of concern I have for her is she's probably the character that's had the most complete arc, and she's also completed her book. She was post-book and Yisang has a big connection to the plot. Ahab is still around, but I worry she's really gonna fade into the background. I mean, which is okay, everybody needs their time in the spotlight. But I guess the thing I'd sort of like to see is like, dealing with trauma is not necessarily a straight path. She'll be back for the boss rush. I can see where people might not like that. If we like have to like cover the same things again. I think it's alright if Ishmael like sort of slips back, but I sort of want to see like more aspects of Ishmael, like struggling with OCD, for instance, and working through it. But we'll see in terms of development. I mean, it sort of depends where. I liked where she reached out to Faust, as well as Yisang in Murder. But in terms of like big development, like, because Heathcliff, we left off. Heathcliff still has plenty to go through. Heathcliff has a whole story arc or more in him. So we'll see, but so yeah, I've never had a chance to like, it's hard always to put into words because there's so much I like about her. But I hope that it kind of sums it up a little bit. I love her personality, I love her design, I love her arc. Okay, I didn't expect that to take an hour and a half, but so let's move on to here. Let's get my notes back up. And let me actually just like get rid of a few of these. Because nothing, I don't even think anything's really a C, but I want more tiers. And again, after I finish cycling through all the Sinner's Cantos, would we expect another set of Cantos focused on each of them, or they choose new focal points? We don't really know. There's gonna be more Cantos, because this is just Inferno, and then the Divine Comedy. Also it's Purgatorio and Paradiso. I assume because we have characters that really haven't gone that much development. Whole new sinners. We'll see. So let's work on this. I'll try not to take quite as long because I also want to talk about other Canto 7 stuff. I don't want to lose my voice. Where did I write chapters? Okay. This is... I'll also say the names because I don't think these are the clearest what they all are. But at the bottom... I feel bad putting something at the bottom, but I don't think this is entirely a controversial placement. I like every story in the game. This is a little more... When it comes to writing, I do have my own sort of like individual preferences. I like stuff that like resonates with me personally, and sometimes that trumps what may be considered stronger, better writing. So I feel like people might point out I have some inconsistency in my choices here, but we'll get that. I just think they're neat. The Miracle. There's a lot I like about Miracle, and I think it's fine. Like, it could actually even be on B tier. I do think it's the weakest story. Maybe if like the prologue would probably not be particularly high as well, but it does one thing I really like that we've sort of been continuing with, which is it breaks the sinners into smaller groups. And as I said, I like Ishmael, Heathcliff, and Dawn, and I get 2 of those 3. I like seeing like these dynamics explored. It's fun to sort of mix up the gameplay a little bit. I guess there's some really funny dialogue. It just makes me wish it was voice acted. Everything that has Dawn in it, I wish at least she was voice acted. I wish it had a little bit more of like the Heath development. It had enough, but I like it when these stories kind of act as prologues for the main cantos, the main chapters. And the problem with it focused on the outskirts, which I think is a little... It doesn't have sort of that much connection with our current characters, which makes it harder to sort of relate in some respects. And I think the information we did get, well, it does reveal some things. I feel like people don't remember it because it's not like the most interesting, like, reveal. But I had moments. I enjoyed the music. I don't love hearing it all the time in the mirror dungeon when I'm doing these packs, but in the moment it was fun. Also not having, I think this is the first one that didn't have voice acting, and no voice. I'm trying not to like hold that against any chapter, but it does hurt. It's noticeable. And yeah, and our introduced characters, Crayon. I feel bad, I can't remember the other guy's name. Aren't that interesting? Hi Farron, welcome. Well, okay. Yeah, this is something new, first time doing this. Okay, so that's gonna be the only thing in C rank. Maybe the prologue would be in here as well if it was a pack, but anyway. And then for the next part, I actually have a really hard time. I thought about this choice a lot, and I can't really do it. But I think at this moment, it's been a while since I read them. I think I'm actually gonna go The Outcast and then The Unloving. I remember also from Esco's tier list, The Unloving was the least liked Canto. And I don't dislike it the way people do. And I don't think it's like egregiously worse than The Outcast. I think The Outcast might be, there's some great stuff in The Outcast. When we're really focusing on Gregor, that's the best, but it's not that much. I see what's held against Unloving is that it's not that much about the Rhodia. The Outcast isn't super heavy on Gregor either. Oh, The Outcast had to do some heavy lifting setting up the game. Yes, I do not envy what the writers had to do here to, like, not just like get you into the action, set up this world in a way that like old players aren't bored, but also like you're showing every character, we're getting to Lobotomy Corporation, we're trying to like create some weight about what Lobotomy Corporation is, what it is. And we're using Yuri a little bit to introduce that. I do like Yuri. The death flags were a little heavy, but her death was for a reason. Oh, and what The Outcast gets big points for is it's still my favorite ending theme. Gregor's Sardine is still my favorite. So I don't think anything up until the dungeon is that great. And my favorite parts are definitely like when we're focusing on Gregor, because when I talked about his character, I love how they're approaching the metamorphosis. But oh, also the most suffering credit art. Yes, I'll have to say that. It's my favorite credit art as well. There's so much character to it. I love how every character is drawn. I love Dante with their face in their hands. I love how much it says about every character. Sinclair just looks miserable. Gregor, as he said, Gregor looks defeated. Rhodia's just like leaning back. And people are just looking professional. I think Dawn's like not caring at all. It's a great piece of artwork. And then you have The Unloving, which is the first half is really solid comedy, and it had a purpose. We need to show that this game is not all doom and gloom. And what I like about some of this comedy is it says a lot about each character. The Unloving is genuinely really funny. It is. Moments. I love the moment when like Ryoshu like asks for Isang's knife and just like brings down the chandelier for no reason. Just because she could. Like everything about that moment's incredible and says a lot about, it reveals stuff about everybody. We probably had more hints about Dawn than in some of the other stuffs. Hi, EJ Gunapal, welcome, welcome, welcome. And then I think where there's a lot of development, there's lots of good stuff in there, and then where I think people dislike is they dislike the ending. And one thing, I don't particularly like the gameplay of the Baba Yaga fight, but I think that it's literally Rhodia running away is really cool theming. Is really, really cool theming and says a lot about her, and I actually really love that. I love the more we go in, the more Cantos we have, the fact that she like straight up makes the choice to be like whatever, see you guys. Rhodia running away from problems in her past. Exactly. I love it. I have to say it's grown on me. I'm afraid dog. Is giving her a pet. Could have been done in a more interesting way. The first 3 Cantos are a little rough. And I try not to hold that too hard against them, because in the end I am comparing stuff against things that happened later, where they've gotten a handle on things. I try not to hold that too hard against them, but it is what it is. And it is what, unless they like go back and change things, which I don't think they are, it is what new players are gonna have to experience. But this is, I think I would put the Unloving a little bit higher than the Outcast. But they're both fine. They're both solid. And now this next one, might be a little controversial, but I'm fully willing to put it up to as I didn't play it under the best circumstances, which is Healed My Flesh to Claim Their Bones. I did not play this one till right at like a few days before it ended even. I can't remember. I had to put it off because I had like a medical procedure, so I didn't feel up to streaming it, and I wanted to save it for streaming, and then couldn't play it because I was so busy with school. And then I needed to play it, and I was just coming off of like a pretty rough chest cold. Then I was streaming it and I wasn't feeling well. My voice was rough, and I was playing it right at the end, so I did miss quite a lot of. And I'd already, because I was grinding the mirror dungeon anyway, I'd already seen the bosses, even if I tried not to read. I just didn't play it in the best circumstances, and I do think that harmed my enjoyment of it, and I'm fully willing to concede that. This one had a lot of hype going into it, because like Kim is such a mysterious and like cool character in Ruina. Not that we like knew anything about him, but he's such a useful page, and just like the concept of Heal My Flesh, the pages are so cool. And then we have the trailer where it's implied, and did happen, that he's distorted, and it's like, whoa. I just don't think, in general, I don't think it's the most interesting storyline. When I come back to it, something that stood out to me that I had a feeling about, and then it was a bit more confirmed with Esku's census, is that I saw that Jun was higher than both Kim and Engdu. Engdu is, she doesn't get a whole lot. In the Intervallo, but the fact that Jun is higher than Kim really stuck out to me. And I think it really goes to say we didn't get that much. I don't think he's the most interesting villain. Aesthetically, it's wonderful, and there's a lot of good moments, as people are saying in the chat. getting distortion lore, Merceau knocking Engdu out is an incredible moment. Ezra's name showed up and I screamed. But the actual like through line, which is just sort of running up and through a building, isn't the most compelling, even though there's like a big thing at the end. The fights were cool, great music. Probably more of a meme for Hard Dungeon Jin, that too. Getting 4 IDs was a surprise that built a lot of the hype. I did really like using the team. I just didn't find it as interesting, and part of that may be because I really like, not participating, but reading discussions, and I didn't get to do that. But I feel like if we got, I feel like I got more about, learned more about Jun from Merceau's Uptai story than the actual event. Like I think where it comes with or more about Bamboo Head Kim. I think I'm trying to say. But this is like very personal. I think when there's potential, it hurts a bit more. There's potential that I wanted, which is not necessarily to say like that's the direction they're gonna go on things, but that's where it sits for me. The next, this one's hard. I think I might actually, I put this on B. I might just bump it up. No, we'll keep things more even. I want to see them more even. We're gonna put the unconfronting. Which is another one that's hard. It's a little hard for me. It could go, I'm putting it here, but it's very solid. It could still go in A. I think where it's the only part where it falters for me is I wish I liked Cromer more. There's these artists on Twitter who have like their galleries exclusively dedicated to like gorgeous religious art of Cromer, like rife with religious symbolism, and I want to see her in that way. I want to see that depth. And I think what hurts is like coming from later Cantos, and I just like the villain so much more. Cromer just falters, and I feel like I'm not reading it in the right way. I end up feeling that way. But I feel like because Cromer is so present throughout the whole thing. Again, it's just sort of like, I wish I liked her more. But like the Canto itself, is good and fine. I don't like it as much as like later ones. And I wish I didn't have like, again, we're at the very beginning of Damien, so, and I like the way they approach the themes with using N-Corp as sort of like the medium, and prosthetics is amusing to talk about them. I just want to say it's fine. I just like other Cantos more. How is Limbus Cromer compared to the one in Damien? Night and day. Damien Cromer, or Book Cromer, is like a nut. He's just a bully. He's like a nothing character. He's just there to bully Sinclair. But Millie's song, I really like, the whole, security checkpoint thing is a lot of fun. I love the CGs there, and the thing that comes after, Maybe it might be my favorite scene in the Canto is actually like the Dawn versus Virgilius, maybe because I've Dawn on the mind at the moment. But it's just such a good scene. But solid boss fight. Good dungeon. Maybe the reason why it doesn't resonate with me is it's like a very explicit kind of horror, like mutilation of people, which I just don't find as compelling in like the first few floors. Then when we're like really digging into like a character's psychology, sort of how I feel, I think. Supporting Sinclair throughout the dungeon and that giving him the buff in the fight was cool. Yes. And Chromer felt decently. I mean, when I played it launch-ish, it did feel decently challenging. It was also very challenging because I was playing on mobile, so I had to be very careful using Ego because the game would likely crash. Very nice that we don't have to deal with that anymore. Let's move on. And this one was tough too because I really like Hell's Chicken. Hell's Chicken like set the standard for Intervallos for me. It's one of those ones where it's like, okay, we're using Intervallos as a way of setting up the next Canto, and I love that choice. I love that choice. It's legitimately funny. Every character gets a moment in the way that they like choose teams, in the way that they make their dishes, the way that they review the dishes. It's so good at like giving every character just those little bits. And the fact that Otis wins by making like a very genuine meal is beautiful. We get introduced to distortions. It's really funny. Heathcliff with the chicken head is incredible. Enemies are fine to good. Papa Bongi is fun. Some incredible voice acting work. Actually, a line that I really remember is, I forget where exactly what Yisong says, but he has a really specific line read. Ooh, sort of. Something about the potato, maybe. Which is just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I like the... I've definitely like played games where like the comedy episode doesn't land, but things really tend to, they're good at them here. They're good at them. Hell's Chicken is why unvoiced Intervallos make me sad. I try so... Yeah, I don't hold it against the game or anything. But I don't think it would hit if it hadn't have been voice acted the same way it did. And then from here it gets pretty difficult. I sat on these ones a lot. I might have a controversial one here. But next we're gonna put Murder. And Murder may go up in the future. This one's a little hard. Where Murder has a lot of great stuff in it. It's really boosted by the ending, personally, and I think that's what people are always going to remember about it. The gore penalty. Maybe. I really try not to, but I've said for a while that like originally I wasn't really looking forward to Dawn's Canto because I was expecting more of a gory thing, and I wasn't really looking forward to this Intervallo at all because of warp trains are scary. But the reveal was just so bonkers, and I think sort of like supersedes everything about the rest of it, so I'm trying to like not just judge it based on that. Faust. Wonderful development for Faust. I mean, it's not just the Dawn reveal, but I like her writing there a lot when she's willing to like go after Cassetti, and even if they're gonna be trapped, she's like, I'll just tell you stories for thousands of years. Like that's what I love. That very genuine, just... Oh, I wish that would. It's one thing, like, if it was voiced, I wish, like, even just the line "coagulated melt away" was voiced. It would do so much. Where it falters a little bit for me is, I think, again, like, it's called Murder on the Warp Express. It didn't have to be a mystery. I just kind of hoping it was, but I think the through line, the character stuff is all great, but the through line of just walking through the train and the battles through most of it weren't that interesting, and Cassetti is not. Cassetti kind of brings it down. He suits the role well, but what he was trying to do, I don't like think he's bad, but compared to like the villains that we do get, he's one that could be stronger with voice acting as well to really sell it. But like a lot of the fights are kind of the samey until the ending. There's hardly a mystery. Sasha's not that interesting. He's no Ahab or no Papa Bongi. And despite saying I don't think some really hype moments in character development saves it for me, I'm gonna completely contradict that and put... It won't let me put the Magic Hell Bus up here. The Magic Hell Bus, again, among the probably some of the weakest gameplay, along with maybe Miracle, probably the weakest gameplay out of any Intervallo, honestly. And as I just said, not the most interesting through line of collecting scrap. But what it did for Ishmael's development and the scenes just meant so much to me. The fight with Ishmael falling apart and trying to keep it together, but falling apart was exactly the writing I wanted from it, and I love the fight. I love the fight with Heathcliff. There's so much there. It's one of my favorite scenes in the game still. And I don't have like something super in depth to say at this point about these moments. I think I sort of talked about what I like about Ishmael's character. These sort of representations of her trauma, and like ultimately she's kind of right. They weren't prepared. It was an interesting one to see the reactions to, because like I'm loving all of the Ishmael development, and then coming online and seeing people really hating her for it, even though like I don't think she's really being unreasonable here, but that's just like me coming at it from like my particular perspective. I understand why people found it frustrating though. But I was like, you don't understand, and we don't understand, we don't know what the deal is. And it has my favorite CG, which is the one of her towards the end in the storm throwing the harpoon. That's just incredible piece of artwork. And great to see Molar Office. And again, it did what I wanted for an Intervallo, which is to set up the Canto. Like, if we had to spend... It was boon for the Canto, because we didn't have to spend all this time setting up the Great Lakes or Ishmael's deal. Let us sort of jump straight in. So we'll see. It may, as we get more stronger Intervallos, as we move on, it might slip down. But at the moment, it's still those moments mean a lot to me. Then at the top of the Intervallos, why does it want to do it, is Time Killing Time, which gets huge points for best boss fight music. maybe even best non-melee track. It's so good. Exactly. Hello, Trapidium. Hi, Carden. Welcome. Is that a Bocchi icon? I wish I could see people's icons better sometimes. Best map art. Oh, that too. everything. I love mysteries, so this was like an obvious. Even if I don't think they went like deeply into detective solving it in the way, like, I'm an Umineko fan, so that's sort of like. It's not fair to compare everything to like Disco Elysium or Umineko, but that's where it sits. But we had the breakup into smaller groups, which I love, and an unexpected group. And it gave way for everybody to get a little bit of development. I think I talked a little bit about, particularly for Rodion, more in the Sinner tier list, so I won't really harp on, but it had a good, compared to like where I say like some have like a not the most interesting through line, this one did. We're like visiting all these different, we get these different enemies, or visiting all these different locations. It culminates in a really solid boss, which managed to both be kind of like funny and heartbreaking. The reveal that like time killing is literally about people killing time was incredible. Was wonderful. Save Tremor. Well, Tremor was kind of already saved, was getting on the way, but with Cavernous Wailing, but it's gonna be sort of like, that's my favorite Intervallo and sort of what I'm gonna compare everything, and does so much that I like when Intervallos don't necessarily do that. I'll hold it against them, but it's also just it uses themes I like. That kind of has a lot going for it. I just love detective stuff. In a way, I wish it was a bit, if it had Cookie Run, they did a sort of Murder on the Orient Express, actually, sort of Christmas event, or winter event, I should say. And they actually had like a mini game sort of for collecting evidence. And I wasn't expecting that, but maybe one day, Oh, the only thing I feel was a missed opportunity was making Dawn do an Amelia Watson call. Oh, been great. And everybody, I think everybody at least gets, even if it's focused on these main three, when everybody's around, they do kind of get their moments. There's some great CGs. Dawn has some good stuff. When she appears like blurry, or in her, I think her face is crossed out in one of the newspaper shots. That's lovely. It's just like a lovely moment. Ishmael, like, I saw a post on Twitter. Oh, my issue is that it doesn't feel like a true mystery, but my standards are probably too high. I have similar feelings, but again, I'm coming from like reading Umineko and reading classic mystery literature, Miss Marple, Sherlock Holmes, etc. And it wasn't really about being a true mystery, I feel, but that's what I would have liked. No whodunit exactly. It's not that kind of mystery, but the aesthetics are there, and that's cool. I remember on Twitter, as I was saying, I saw somebody when like when the trailer came out and Ryoshu, Rodion, and Honglu were picked, there's some people like, Ishmael's gonna be so mad. I'm like, I don't think she will. And then when it actually comes up in the Canto, she's like, this is like, hey, time off, this is great. And then you have, I'm going to jail? And then the themes, it's, I think, thematically, and the implications of it are going to be very far-reaching. But it has some, I think, the deepest thematic writing, which I wasn't even expecting them to go as far as they did in it, and I'm appreciative of that. And Hubert's a good side character, and good villain. But it's what I sat with a lot of, and just going back to reading some of the sections again. those are my main thoughts. And now, okay. Now at the beginning, we're gonna put the unchanging. Now the unchanging is a little hard for me to like fully evaluate because the source material, which is partially real life, I'm aware that there's a lot of context I'm missing for that. And I feel like I can't fully evaluate it, just not knowing that there's depth there that I'm not privy to. And I appreciate the people like on Reddit trying to like explain, because some of this work just isn't, I don't know if it's not translated or just not very accessible, because I wanted to read like the Camellias, I wanted to read some of Dongrang's writing, but there's not that much information. I feel like I can't fully fairly evaluate it without, to me, as someone who likes to be like familiar with the source material, I feel like there's stuff I'm possibly missing. So having that, it definitely has some gameplay pacing issues, which just comes out of, I think, inexperience in Project Moon, because obviously they improved upon it a ton in later stories. And it's just the fact that our enemies are K-Corp, who heal, and there's security, and there's robots. You just have a lot of like very tanky enemies you have to go through like multiple waves and multiple fights. And I feel like they're just sort of figuring it out. And that's okay. That's okay. I'm afraid dog. So that's coming back to it. Even at the time, a lot of filler, yes. Even at the time, I was like, this isn't great. The other part where it doesn't hit as high for me, yeah, I'm just looking at the chat, like, you could cut 2 battles from a lot of sections to be fine. Exactly. I feel like if you didn't have Claire at that point, I don't know how you'd, like, was unavailable because it was the next season. If you didn't have him or couldn't borrow him, it was such a boon to have because everything's blunt weak for the beginning. The other part where it loses points for me is I didn't particularly care for the Technology Liberation Alliance. Compared to like when we're introduced to certain factions and enemies, now it just didn't have that sort of depth behind them. And I like the concept, but when I come back to it, it just felt like a way to get Don Beck in there. Because I never really felt much of a relationship between Don Beck and any of the other characters. And the thing that really stands out to me is Ran just dies off screen. Or even just a way to like get the show off like ego, particularly like ego gear and weapons. But yeah, Ran just dies off screen, and I was like, what is, really? Because that's not something we really do. I was expecting her to come back and she never did. So when we do face Don Beck, and I was like, it really just feels like their way of like giving a bit of background to her philosophy. I guess the TLA was just meant to be a vehicle that puts Don Beck at odds with Dongrangi-san. Exactly. That's what it feels like to me, and I don't want them to be that way. But again, that's one where like maybe there's nuances I'm not understanding here. But a lot of good moments. Oh, I don't think I talked about it in like when talking about Ishmael, but the part where she's like takes the ampoules for Dante and is melting, and I like that as foreshadowing for Canto 5, and again sort of really ties into her desire for control and like understanding, because she has those lines where like that kind of stood out to me, because what's she meaning here? She's like, can anybody make it make sense? And one that like ties back to her fear of like melting down into nothing, into a whale, and losing her consciousness there and having like a meaningless death. but also stuff in the Great Lakes doesn't make sense. It really just is a nice, like, foreshadowing to that bit. But once we get to Dawnbeck, I think everything is great. Everything is really solid. And I can't pick a favorite villain still, because it's one where it's hard to compare, because I think like Ahab, Errol King, and not that I consider Errol King like the true antagonist of Canto 6, but Ahab and Dongrang are such different characters and succeed in such different ways. But if I had to sit on it, I feel like I've thought about Dongrang the most. He's such an interesting character, and Samjo's death is probably an all-time moment. Incredibly well executed moment. I think about Samjo, probably still my favorite NPC type characters. What a great character, and like Dongrang just watches it. And like, it's so sad, it makes me laugh all the time. But wonderful characters. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And Flybroken Wings. The best character death ever. I mean, here's Ishmael being worried about one of the most meaningless deaths in the city. Oh, there's so much to talk about. I don't want to, like, talk forever, because I still want time to talk about other stuff. It was Flybroken Wings, which is, like, our first, like, Millie moment. Which, like, it blew my mind. Like, Project Moon is so good at, like, hitting those emotional moments, because we have these, like, these boss fights, and then we have these monologues with the music, and then we just get Flybroken Wings. They do similar things in the other cantos, but it hits so hard. And you could do... I'm a big fan. I talk about this in some, like, my Fallout streams. I'm a big fan when you can, like, pull off something really well with not very much. And that's something I liked about Dead Money and Fallout New Vegas. But there's so much good, and it's a pretty different kind of conclusion, I think. But lots of good moments. I love Otis particularly, like, saying that the calf will definitely remember and then the calf walking past, and just those 3 CGs, and then Dongrang's voice acting there, he just kind of laughs a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, there's lots to do. It just doubles down on everything. We get a Carmen name drop. Sorry, just having a drink, adjusting how it's sitting. There's so much there, and having sort of both I read The Wings, and obviously it's not like a literal adaptation, but the way they executed the themes and bringing in all this real world stuff that I didn't know of and got to learn, and I'm like, this is another reason why I love these works. I get to learn so much. Yeah, and it's one where it's hard to, like, easily summarize my thoughts, because there's a lot of depth here. I'll leave it at that for why it's lower. And now the final 2. And this is really hard for me again. This is really hard for me. I want to talk about what I think they both succeed and don't succeed in. If you force me to pick one, I think they're gonna be like this. Which you can totally just say Ishmael bias here, but they're very close. And again, they succeed on different levels for me. Canto 6, the aesthetic expected. Sure, I'll take it. Expected, but I'd agree. It's the same with like trying to compare Compass and Through the Patches of Violet. I might say Through the Patches of Violet is like much better integrated into the boss fight. I love the creativity with how it works with the themes there. However, I still have listened to Compass more. I've still listened to In Hell We Live Lament more. So let's talk about them a little bit. What I want to say is, I think Canto 6 has higher highs. It has peaks. And then saying it has lower lows is not correct, because I don't think there's anything particularly low here. It was just more there was potential here that I think that just wasn't quite met. Some of the things that stand, I mean, as I said, the aesthetic, there's so much about the art direction I loved, having this like sort of more sepia toned look with these like splashes of purple. Excellent. And I'm sort of an easy mark for the Victorian aesthetic. I loved all of that. I loved the music. I loved the twists. I really loved Wuthering Heights, and I think it really benefited. It was fun if you had read Wuthering Heights and you could sort of see where they were changing things, and I was really interested how they were approaching these certain characters and themes, mixing together. Edgar and Linton was fun and like a good choice. Excellent characters. Kinley is so lovably hateable and has an incredible performance. There's the Virgilius moment, which, I mean, there's nothing that compares. You have Heathcliff distorting, which is one of my favorite sequences in the game. Everything from the end of that first Elking fight, or I guess it was more like question mark Heathcliff. That whole sequence, and you're hearing Carmen's voice, and then there's like the flashes of her, and then she kind of like jump scares you on the loading screen. That's incredible. Incredibly well done. The voice acting there spawns some of my favorite fan art. The two things I wish for that was I wish it lasted a bit longer, because it's like such a huge moment. And of course, I mean, it's a long canto anyway. I wish there was just a little bit more discussion from the characters about it, because like the wait between like part 2 and 3, there's so many theories, and I was expecting him to stay distorted for quite a while, and we just deal with it in one chapter. Maybe that's wrong on me for like spending the time expecting things. I missed it, but someone said disappointed that we didn't have Ish coax Heathcliff out as distortion. I had the same thing. I talked about it, like, I think it was something a lot of people were sort of expecting Ish to have like a return the favor moment. For me, it's not even about shipping, although I don't particularly like ship them romantically or anything, though I like the relationship between the two characters. I like them supporting each other. It's such a weird missed opportunity, because it really felt like it was being set up like that. I had her do the check, but I was kind of disappointed that didn't happen. That would have sort of like it would have been the full circle. It would have been the full circle, because Ishmael, he helped her through her anger, and she'd help him through his. You could maybe say that there was some tough pacing. When it comes to pacing, sometimes like I just can criticize it, but I don't know how else you would have done it. But I think the boss rush was a little tough if you were playing them all sort of in one go. But I don't really know how else you'd sort of approach it, but I liked not having... It was a nice difference to not have a dungeon, and I think this approach worked well. I think there's gonna be some characters that will benefit from a dungeon, some won't. I was expecting, like, Heathcliff would have been like a mid-dungeon boss or something. And then the evil defining. The main thing I want to say is why I rate it slightly higher is it just the themes resonate with me a little bit more. I think the pacing is excellent. I need to cough again. Really strong pacing. Some great fights. Ricardo's become a wonderful meme. Pequod Trio is still one of my favorite fights. They're just really fun and different. Loved Ishmael's development. There's some themes here. There's this theme of loneliness and using the whales as a metaphor. It's sort of like painting someone else in your own image, and Ishmael sort of like resonating with this whole theme of connection and loneliness that I really liked. There's also a theme of like finding your path, but it's alright to not have the answer immediately. I mentioned the Dante quote earlier, which is like, so the most I could offer now is a hopeful immediate tomorrow. I love that line. I love Dante saying like it's okay not to have the answer. And just make it to have something to look forward to tomorrow. I love that because it's sort of something that I've had to tell myself when there's harder things going on. The whole ending sequence, I love the fourth wall break, for instance, in Canto 6. But the whole ending sequence with like from Ishmael's boss battle to getting some backstory, and there's the instrumental of Compass playing, to Queequeg's death, to Dante standing in Ishmael's way, to the final moment where you have to actually make the choice to strike the heart, to the Millie moment. The whole pacing of that scene is just so excellently well done. I was sort of watching the ending of these while I was trying to decide. And it's totally biased, but it resonated with me more. And I think that's generally what I like in these games. I like it when stuff speaks to me personally. Ahab is incredible because she doesn't show up to like, yeah, the dungeon, the final part, but her voice actor is incredible. She just absolutely sells the charisma of that kind of character. And the crew is immediately likable. I love Queequeg, Starbuck's fun, Pip is fun. But the theming, and like I said, I like seeing a character fall apart. I want it for everybody. I hope everybody has their moments, and then you can get through it. The little part where it falters, which I had to think about, because I kind of felt it after I played it, but I didn't. I wanted to sit on it a little bit more, so I don't remember bringing it up, is I don't know if Dante earned becoming Ishmael's Compass just from the events of the Canto. That's what I'm thinking. I kind of wished we could have like contrasted Dante to Ahab more, and like Ahab sort of isolating everybody to follow her versus like Dante creating like a better environment for everybody. That's where I sort of wanted to see it go. Again, that's very personal. I don't think like Dante had created excuse me, sorry. I like Dante's speeches and I like how they were reaching out to Ishmael, but I don't think it like quite meant that Ishmael had to choose only Dante as the reason for her continuing. I kind of wanted it to be like the whole crew, because it would have tied it back to like her rejection of Rhodia earlier. That's my one tiny personal feeling, but it's absolutely fine. It was one like, this is what I like to see, but it doesn't mean it had to have happened. But her saying we're not that close and like sort of intentionally isolating herself from all the other sinners, that's where I sort of expected it to come around to. Yeah, I think that's where we'll leave this tier list, and the last thing I want to do for the last little bit is I want to talk a little bit about Canto 7. If it wasn't clear, I will say it now. We've only had the teaser. We have not had the full trailer, so we don't know the full battle pass yet. So I wanted to I talked a bit about it on Twitter, but to do it here, I want to talk about who else could be on the battle pass as one thing. Because I mentioned like an earlier stream, I had no idea what who could fit the battle pass, and then we get the murder reveal. And then I was like, oh wait, actually I have a ton of ideas. So we know it's 400 roses as the capstone, which is something I guessed, but it wasn't an uncommon guess. So then the question is, who's gonna match with her? Who's gonna have what's probably gonna be the other evolve? And my two guesses are Sinclair, but Honglu is the other one. It sort of depends. Are we gonna wait? I don't know if they're gonna want to hold off on giving Honglu evolve all the way until his Canto. Maybe we want to start with Aleph's. I feel like Aleph's would fit maybe Ryoshu's Canto more, waiting till then. But Honglu's the one sort of other sinner who sort of had this sort of slight theme of possibly an inhuman nature with the eye, and I've seen some people speculate the eye might be from the outskirts and he is the eye, for instance. I feel like that could be a reading, and then Sinclair's the only other one. When we look at the sort of story, there's an interesting part to it. Obviously, unless someone else is secretly a blood fiend, but I don't think so. We have, this flower was once a rose that could have been tiny and beautiful. That's a really interesting line to me, because that sort of implies to me that Dawn wasn't born a blood fiend, that there was something else before that like turned her cruel, and I don't know how to read that for other sinners necessarily. Besides like giving Honglu the eye would have turned him into something else. That's sort of the reading I was doing. Or everything that's happened to Sinclair. This could be like an N. Sinclair sort of thing, where the right situation turns him into something else. Those are my two thoughts, but I guess I should say, who's likely on the battle pass? We know it's Dawn. Then the other sinners that are behind on Ego are Faust, Honglu, Rhodia, Sinclair, Yisang, and Merceau. So I think it's gonna be, we'll either get Yisang and Merceau, because they were both on the last battle pass, everyone else wasn't. So the first few are very likely, but then, I don't know. For the others, the other abnormality that I thought of before, I think actually has a good chance now, is Rose Hunter. I feel now that Carmilla's been confirmed and is Rose theme, and if we're casting roses in place of blood fiends. I definitely feel like there's a really good chance of Rose Hunter now. But it has this sort of theme of, like, it takes this fairy tale theme and, like, certain people have to play their roles, which also feels like it relates to Dawn's whole situation. What I'm looking for is an apple that will become a princess, not knowing its rightful place. It's very thematically related. For this, I like Faust with this, as she's somebody who is like, she's been cast as the role or identity of Faust, and the Faust network is probably going to require her to remain Faust, but she is finding some sort of independence from that identity. So I like that. I don't know about the other sinners though. Possibly Merceau as a sort of he also likes to be told his role and to follow it. It also fit Faust because she's probably gonna stick, at least for a while, in the core Rupture team, so it'd be a nice Rupture. Nice Rupture ego. Before we learned the Blood Fiend reveal, the only sort of idea I had was Star Luminary. And I'm not super sure about this one now because it feels like it's being like a offshoot of Blue Star or an aberration. It's probably going to be like highly ranked. And I don't know. Rose Hunter feels like at least a hay to me. So I don't know if we're gonna get like Star Luminary feels like Evolve, and I don't know if we'd get that. I feel like this could also fit just aesthetically Honglu's Canto. But this whole thing is about perspective. Well, not entirely about perspective, but why it reminded me of Dawn was the person claims that they're holding stars, this kind of thing. And Dawn has a very specific perspective, at least tries to see that perspective in the world. And like stars are a theme, particularly to reach the impossible star. But I don't know. This one, I think like sorry, running out of water and losing my voice, is getting a little scratchy. Aesthetically, I think it fits Honglu. I also think you could cast Rhodia in this, again, with a sort of desire to be special. You're seeing these marbles as something special. Star Lumen, right, Star Lumen could also be, you can see it. It could be Child of the Galaxy. Definitely, that was my first instinct as well, that it's a Child of the Galaxy thing, but it does have this sort of returning to the place, which is a Blue Star thing. I think you could go either way, and then I don't really know what this ego would look like. Hi, Heathcliff! You missed your spot in the tier list. Don't worry, you're high up. So I'm less sure about Star Luminary, but I think there's just in terms of like what tier it could be, and I have no idea what the gameplay, how it would actually work, but I feel like there is a reading you could take with it. And the other one, which again I'm not sure of, where are you? Is it up higher? Hold on, I guess I could search, but oh yeah, Wailing Coffin, that was up. Wailing Coffin, again, I'm unsure of, because I feel like even though Carmilla has like a HP percentage ego gift, I can't imagine it not being bleed. And I don't know if they'd give us 2 bleed. I guess like 4 bleed egos for this. Unless they really want to like save bleed. I don't know, but like thematically, just the imagery of something bloody being locked away is really evocative. It's really very evocative. I don't know who sort of fits the locked away kind of theme. So I'm less sure about this one as well. They'll give it to someone with a bad no bleed ID. Rhodia again. It will deal tons of count. Coffin, obviously, Heathcliff. But yeah, so that's my thoughts. I'm unsure. And then I've seen occasion one or two people suggest Wandering Mine. I don't feel it as strongly as some of the other choices, but we'll see. Obviously, Joan in the Flask is obviously Faust. Then the one other like wild card option, actually Golden Grip. There's actually something to say about Golden Grip actually. Sleepyhead is also sort of blood themed. Where are you actually? Oh yeah, Paper Chairman. Because it's fun. It's sort of fixer office themed. No one likes fixers. It would just be fun. I kind of want to see this one. And if we're bleed season, lust is the sin associated with bleed. It just works. It just works. But I don't have like a deep, strong feeling about this one. I just think it'd be fun and something different that's not bleed related. So the one reason, okay, so now I brought up this one for a reason. But so here we're gonna, what is the most windmilly abno? My only thought when somebody was like asking me about, BP ego, I thought maybe before I had like ideas for it, I was like, maybe something windmill themed, and we don't really have one. I'm gonna bring up Golden Grip here, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about Canto 7 now, just as I've gone into some of the media. I want to do some more, like, I always like to read background literature as well, and there's still quite a few papers to read that I saved, but I want to show off a few things. But it's now a video, it's not a stream anymore, but I did talk quite a bit about like thoughts on Canto 6, and I talked about Nelly and kind of the themes I wanted them to approach, like what I expected of the characters. I'm finding it way hard to do here with Canto 7 because as I've gone deeper into the literature, it's so dense, there's so much going on thematically, and we have like multiple pieces of media that we may or may not draw from. We have both books, although most books I found sort of package them as one, but you can consider it Don Quixote Part 1 and Part 2. With both books, we have possibly the other book, the fanfic book. We have the musical, which is in itself a play within a play. So you're left with this sort of really interesting question of authorship, which I really like. And because Dawn's original sprite used to say Miguel on it, as opposed to something like, not even Dawn, but Miguel being Cervantes, so it obviously brings to question, like, are there more identities? Is Miguel her true identity versus like Don Quixote? Versus Alonso? Oh, there's so much going on, and I was like, there's this theme of like reality, of madness. Where are we going? And now that we've added the whole blood fiend theme, they're obviously gonna want to spend some time going into that. Like, I don't even know. And I have a much weaker grasp on the general characters this time. And also, oh yeah, also the theming of the book and the musical is really quite different, which I think sort of can lead to a really interesting friction if they tend to like approach that, because the book is pretty critical about this whole idea of like chivalric literature. It's pretty critical of Don Quixote. He's like violent and beats Sancho, and they like describe him as like having a brain the size of a walnut, who like it wasn't just that he read the literature, he read it and didn't understand it, and like he regularly makes things worse. There's some stories where like people tell him to stop trying to save them because it's just making things worse. Versus the Man from La Mancha, or Man of La Mancha. I can't listen to the song of like Dream the Impossible Dream, or The Impossible Dream, and not think it's a celebration of these themes. Like ultimately, I feel like Project Moon's works leans more on like this theme of like fighting for what's right, and it's what I sort of hope, but I imagine it will be, at least to like break Dawn down a little bit, it's gonna be critical of chivalry, for instance. That's a big thing. I'm like, but again, maybe they just won't even touch the book, who knows. I'm not sure if Sancho's alive given Don's ego. I don't even have like a good speculation about that. I would imagine Dulcinea is, and sort of the question is, are we going with like the metaphorical Dulcinea, or like Aldonza from the musical? It was an interesting character because at the ending she becomes Dulcinea. She takes on that identity. I don't know which way they'll take it. I have this image of like whether she's taking on sort of like the chivalric type of thing, and maybe that gets her killed, or maybe Don Quixote had these sort of journeys before, and Aldonza becoming Dulcinea involved her becoming a blood fiend. And like maybe Dawn wanted to have these companions with her forever, or maybe the companions made this choice and the current Dawn is horrified by that idea. It's like there's these different ways of taking them, and I don't even have a preference. I think they're all so interesting. The other very big character is the Knight of the Mirrors. I imagine, given that he also goes by like Knight of the Moon, what's he called? I'm also trying. We just did the Zvai, but I've talked so much. The Zvai have like they just introduced the like Lunar League of Knights, which does feel like a setup for that lunar thing. We just did it, but there's so much in my head at the moment. Yeah, I imagine that's sort of a setup to bring in Knight of the Mirrors. The name Knight of the Mirrors, also called Knight of the Grove, and this character is sort of the most fascinating for me, with the potential. The new potential man. Because there's obviously, within the context of this story, mirrors have a very specific meaning. They're for seeing these alternate universes, and I can see Knight of the Mirrors, and in the play, if you haven't seen, here's my admission, I haven't read all of the second book, but I did go and read the sections with Knight of the Mirrors. Was collecting them to read. I read some of them. But in the book, or in the play, I mean, he uses the mirrors to sort of like shock Don Quixote back to his senses. Shock Don Quixote with his countenance, with his appearance, to sort of like break him down. And so there's like, taking this within the Limbus context, there's the obvious like answer that will show like Dawn every identity, and every identity she's a blood fiend or something. The other thing is, in sort of classical vampire literature, is that vampires can't be seen in mirrors. Yes, Knight of the Woeful Countenance. As vampires can't be seen in mirrors, I think there's actually like a really haunting direction to take that. If you show Dawn her reflection and it's just empty, and this sort of feeling like she doesn't exist, or maybe you show her the mirror and you see all the other sinners and there's just an empty spot where she is, to imply that like there's not even a place for her here among these others, because she's doesn't belong there. Whichever direction they take this, I think it's like such a compelling, fascinating idea. I don't know if he'll be the final boss. I imagine the way we sort of go, I mean, he could be like a part 3 boss. I don't know if we'll get to the barber in part 1. We'll see. But yeah, that's sort of the scenes I'm most excited for. There's so many ways they can take it, and it's cool no matter what. The reason why I brought up Golden Grip is to do with the question of Roland. Because Roland, Orlando, is referenced several times. I don't think he's actually gonna appear. I don't think I want him to appear, but I wouldn't mind like even just having a few lines in a flashback. Because he is heavily connected to the Blood Fiends with the whole Elena Blood Red Knight thing. It's hard to imagine, with this opportunity, it's hard to imagine there won't be some sort of reference, although whether it's Roland or the Black Silence sort of remains. Ishmael shares a voice actress with Angelica, so perfectly good reason to have him there. The other people who could appear is so the barber has something. Dawn mistakes the barber's basin for like the golden helmet of Membrino, which is sort of reminded me of the golden urn. I don't think there's like a big reasoning here with this symbolism, but it just reminded me of that. And what's really interesting about the golden helmet of Membrino is it shows up in different literature, including Orlando Furioso and Orlando Innamorato, as a helmet that Rinaldo wears, and that gives him invulnerability. And Rinaldo being Renaud, who we do have a silhouette from Library of Runa. So maybe Renaud gets referenced. He has like really spiky hair. I don't really see him wearing a helmet in those images. But there's definitely references there. The other person who I was looking up, that gets referenced is Ganelon, who I didn't realize is also one of like the 12 peers, and is known as the Betrayer, Ganelon. And he gets referenced. Don Quixote doesn't like him for being a traitor, so maybe even just a reference, but he also appears, I didn't know this, in the Divine Comedy. In Canto, what's that? 32. Just you wait till Canto 32, everyone. It's gonna happen. Like, there could be some foreshadowing here. Well, Canterbury Tales. Oh yeah, and the Song of Roland is Roland's stepfather. I don't know how that relates soon. But like, this kind of reminds me, there's too much like, there's too many like name drops of the 12 peers that I can't imagine they won't at least get referenced. I can imagine like the barber referencing that like Rinaldo stole the helmet. Or I guess it was just a basin for some reason. Or Dawn at least references it. But those are sort of my main thoughts. I wish I had more to say, but it's so... I've been like buried in my lit review. The readings are intense. I was reading this whole one that's actually literally about Don Quixote and alternate realities and how he's living in an alternate reality, and I couldn't quite parse it, to be honest. And so I wish I had some more to like properly speculate over, but I can only really... But the themes there's so much to work with. I don't have like super strong feelings. The only thing is I could see it having a more, with the dream ending, a more bittersweet or bad ending. Excuse me, need another drink. But ultimately, like, I do hope for a more, like, at least a positive moment for Dawn, because ultimately she represents, like, the hope. And when you listen to the Impossible Dream, I don't think you can... like, take that and interpret it in any sort of cynical way. It's a gorgeous, beautiful song, and I hope it's like referenced even. I wouldn't even mind if like we had that instead of the Millie song about Millie, but like the lines in it are gorgeous. So I hope, and like I have no idea if we're gonna like keep her. I can't predict if her ID is gonna be the Blood Fiend. It feels a bit early to have like full Blood Fiend powers, but our big IDs tend to be, the big story IDs tend to lean more on like bad ending type of things. She's also in a weird position because she's also in need of an ID. So can you have an ID of your current world self? I don't even know. I mean, Distorted Dawn? Elena distorted more, so I don't know what that means. But also, as I said, she's behind in IDs as well, so I don't know if that means she's going to be waiting for a while or that she's going to get like an earlier story ID. I have no idea, but I think the people who are due, who are likely going to get the first 3-week kind of IDs are Gregor again, Honglu, and Sinclair. Hoping for Bleed and Rupture. Maybe Burn, maybe Blood Fiend Hunter. I really hope we see them. They sound so cool. So I could think Burn, and I don't even know what team I'm gonna use. We haven't had like it has to be someone with Dawn. Has to be someone with Dawn, in which case my options are like Charge, which is obvious. Probably like her most well-rounded ID. I don't have Sank. Who could kind of fit in a lot of places. My Rupture, we could do Rupture. I'm just not as familiar playing with it as my other teams. We could always go back to like the Blade Lineage kind of Poise team. If we want Bleed, we can always use Middle Dawn. I don't know, we'll have to see. I won't decide until we get in there and we can change around. Charge is always going to be safe, and I was thinking you could probably stick Zvi, Ishmael on Charge and have some fun. Depends on what the enemies are weak to. Exactly. Because I liked using a sinking team. And I don't tend to pull. Oh yeah, and Tremor would always work. I don't love her for like general usage because she can inflict time moratorium and make things last longer, but we'll see. Always an option for bosses. now that we have Ishmael as well. So we'll go back here. I'm gonna finish up there, but that was a little different. So I don't have the best vocal stamina, so I start getting scratchy towards the end. And as we learn to enjoy Ishmael. I hope Ishmael is good. Ishmael is good. I hope she's I laugh that Project Moon is still paying for the crimes of Sloshmail even now. I wasn't expecting her. She's better than I expected. I'm quite happy. I'm glad, because I hope I can bring her into the next Canto and she'll find some good usage there. I just hope it's not another 9 months until her next 3-star, but we'll see. We'll see. I would have loved to see a Vampire Hunter ID, but she's not really due for anything. That's fine. That's fine. But we should be getting, I don't know, it's either today or tomorrow, depending on your time zone. We should be getting the full trailer. We'll get our first look. We'll get, of Oblivion. Very, very exciting. We'll see what the IDs are leaning towards. Maybe some hints of other things. Very, very exciting. And of course I'll be streaming next week, and I'll do it as I normally do. Haven't made the thumbnails yet, because I'm waiting for some... which is okay if it doesn't get ready. We can be sheep again. Hint, hint. I'll do it the way I normally... I'll do it the way I normally do, which is like... do a bit when it comes out, and then do a bit the next day. Hello, Faust. I hope this placement is satisfying. Okay, it's not that exciting. It's to do with thumbnail stuff, but... we'll see, we'll see. But I hope this is a bit different for me. I was a bit nervous at the beginning, but I enjoyed doing that. But thank you. I loved hearing everybody's discussions as well, and their thoughts, and I hope you enjoyed this. It was fun to do a retrospective. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll have... I was just curious about why Ryoshu is in B tier. You can watch the stream in just a minute. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll try and timestamp this as well. But I appreciate everything from everyone. So thank you again, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.